Good morning from Galilee, a waning moon, a waning full moon. And here we see another harvest field we haven't walked into. Although one morning I walked in there thinking I might do it there a few days ago. And I think this is the 5th day of our series of harvest strolls and chat. Sunrise stroll and chat at harvest time. And you might be surprised with the theme today. It's also about harvesting. And you might be surprised with the concrete theme because it's about this field. Although I might have to correct that later, and it's about this field down here. So it's not about the fields with the rows of cut grain. It's about the fields that are lying fallow. Now, if English is not your language, you mightn't be familiar with the word, but a field lying fallow is not having a crop. And this is done to rest the field. I remember my dad, God rest his soul, using that language. We're going to rest this field next year. So this is part of rotation. First of all, there's a rotation of crops. You normally don't sow the same crop, at least when I was a child, in the same field every year, because it could develop weaknesses and illnesses. And so you switch crops so the soil is also renewed. And there's a proverb in English that's very healthy. Very wise. And the proverb is, a change is as good as a rest. So even if you have to do a different work because of the circumstances, let's say parents, young children, and they come home from work and now, it's not a paid job to look after the children, to do the dishes, to do laundry. But those things are very good for us because it's a change of rhythm, a change of pace, a change of focus, and it allows other parts of our attention spans to relax. A change is as good as a rest. And here we come into the whole idea also of vacation, but also tea break. I remember how good a tea break was in the fields back in the 1960s as a little child when we were making the hay. And there was even a beer break. I gave up Guinness when I was 8 years old. You mightn't believe that, but that's a fact. I gave up Guinness when I was 8 years old. And it's connected with a tea break at the harvest time. Well, actually, it was a beer break. So my mother was very clever, she understood human nature a lot. And one of the things she did for the workers out in the field was to provide signs of cherishing them, of appreciating them, of supporting them. And there was a basket of beer bottles mid-morning. Now in the warm weather, and Ireland's warm weather would be like mediocre spring here. So in Ireland they can't understand that we could have temperatures up to 40 degrees. They think we'd be all like fried eggs afterwards. But and we have 45 sometimes here centigrade Celsius. Like that's way up, like 120 stuff, So she would provide a basket of beer in the mid-morning, like around 11. I remember that. I was very small, like 7 or 8 years old. 8 years old probably. Not more than that, I don't think. And so there were beers there, like I remember there was Harp Lager, there was obviously Guinness, and there was another kind of beer. And then there was the bottle opener, and then there were 4 mugs. The 4 mugs were for the children of drinking age. And I was the oldest, and I was 8. So I had 2 sisters and my brother, my little brother. And my little sister, she was probably only a year or 2 old, so she wasn't of drinking age yet. And I hope I'm not scandalizing anybody here, okay? Well, anyway, one day, out of some little ambition of mine, or urge, or drive, I happened to get to the basket before my siblings did. And I took the whole Guinness that I was supposed to share with my siblings, just for me. I drank it all. I probably did it as a sign of my virility. I was coming of age. You know, I was a big man now. I was 8 years old. I was beginning to work on the farm. So I finished off the whole beer. And I'm not sure if my siblings even noticed, you know. They were playing whatever. So I felt so terribly. You can imagine my stomach was not able for that. And I became so upset in my tummy. I was nauseated. I just couldn't even eat that day. Oh, we got a bird out here. Look at this bird. Where are you, little bird? Let me get focus here. Over here the bird is out of the sunlight, so that's a pity. But let's try and... You see the bird in the center of the screen? With a beautiful reflection in the water. Look at that. Not just do we have a bird, we have our reflection, or his reflection if it's a cock. So I'm actually grateful that I had that experience, because I didn't need any major help to avoid abuse of alcohol as a teenager. It was a providential step. And alcohol in Ireland can be very abused, unfortunately, with great detriment. And so that experience was very special for me. And actually I couldn't even look at beer. I remember when I came back from my profession, having made my first vows. I need to find the bird again now, because the bird didn't move. I brought it into the sun, into the line with the sun here. No, I didn't. I went too far. So the bird now is just above where the reflection is on the water. So let's see if we can catch it here. Come on. You see it's right there, but I don't know if you can make it out. With the intensity of the light. There we have her. And she's so peaceful there, she figures I can't go out there. I won't bother her, she has plenty of time. Maybe we had a better picture of her in the other spot with less light. Sometimes less is more. So let's go back. Oh, we have a little guy down here. Coming to the surface. So anyway, to finish the beer story, there was a little celebration at home, and my first cousin was handing out bottles of beer to everybody, Guinness and so on. And he said, what would you have? And, you know, I was completely unprepared to answer that question. And then he just pushed a bottle of Guinness in my hand. Or a glass of Guinness, I think it was. If I remember correctly, I think it was a glass of Guinness, or it could have been a bottle. Anyway, I was standing at that moment beside my brother, and he had made much more progress than I had with the bottle of Guinness. I think I hadn't even started, actually, as it wouldn't make sense if I had. I hadn't even started. I just had it in my hand, you know, that socially holding a glass or a bottle in your hand. And when my brother's bottle was down, or glass was down to about 3/4 empty, then I said, hey, do you mind switching? And he gave me his glass, and mine went to my brother, so I was covered. That was back in the day when Ireland still was very indulgent in alcohol, and probably still is, but there's been also a kind of a development, thanks be to God, where people can say no to drink more easily. It's not socially imposed, I hope. Well, I'm off subject. So that was a beer break in the morning. We need breaks in work. And that's why Shabbat is so important. And in the Western culture, Friday is involved. You know, we have that famous line, thank God it's Friday. So the need for a rest and a break. But the nature also needs it, and farmers discovered that. So leaving a field fallow for a year is a good thing for nature. And we need to relearn those kind of realities. How to leave a field fallow and not demand productivity all the time. And the biblical tradition, you have the Jubilee year, and the land was rested and restored. I think if I must refresh my facts. It's early in the morning, people. Was there something also about every 7 years the field was rested? But anyway, I need to check that out. And the Jubilee year was the 7 7s, 49, 50. And that's the origin of the Jubilees. And that was then connected with mercy and forgiveness and restoration of property, a biblical ideal that was probably rarely fulfilled. But having the ideal in sight is also a good thing. It helps us to realize we have plenty of room for growth. So growth comes also by resting. You know how important a night's sleep is, a good night's sleep. Last night there was a lot of partying music in the boats outside my window, so early this morning the sleep was a little damaged because of that. So we're often up there for the sunrise stroll and chat on that side of the hill there. There's some cows up there now in that spot. We were actually up there, about there, when we noticed on the middle edge there, middle of the screen, when we noticed the fields that were harvested. So that led to this week of harvest series, considering the harvest, and here considering the fallow, the wisdom of allowing nature to rest. And there's so many times of rest. You know, even music, silence plays a great part in music, because there's a silence between each note. And the silence is longer, then it has a different effect. The silence is shorter, it has a different effect. So it's not just all sound. Sometimes there's so much noise without breaks. Some of us have a fault of speaking too much and needing to leave breaks. Leaving that space where we're not filling it, and let the Spirit fill it, let God fill it, that we're listening. That famous rule of the Benedictines, ora et labora, pray and work, balance in life. Here we're just north of Magdala, it's right there behind those boat covers. These blues are all covers for the boats. This is a lovely place, really. It's a blessing to be able to be here. And it's a blessing for the pilgrims to come here. And hopefully to come back in a month's time, God willing. There will be a gentle opening with approved groups by the Ministry of Tourism from some countries. And then as the experiment works, then it will be opened up more, God willing. So So I have another attachment for you this morning, and that attachment is for the occasion of Ramadan and the closing of Ramadan. We're now over halfway. The waning of the full moon is a sign of that. It's a lunar calendar, just like the Jewish liturgical calendar is lunar, or actually the civil calendar also. So, and we have inherited that. So, this document is very interesting. Every year, the Vatican Council for Dialogue, Interreligious Dialogue, publishes a message to the Muslim people. And I encourage you to read it. It's in 6 languages. And you will see that the very first language there, just because of alphabetical order, starts with A, Arabic. So you can click on that, and if you have some Muslim friends, what a beautiful detail it would be to send them this message. It's a message of hope, a message of fraternity, a message of love, a message of teamwork, that we can all build hope together, that we all build fraternity together. How much we need this in our neighborhoods. Maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, you wouldn't know many Muslim people, or you wouldn't meet them. But if you come as a pilgrim in the Holy Land, your bus driver might be Muslim, your guide might be Muslim, the chef will probably be Muslim, many of the waiters will probably be Muslim, the people who do your rooms, and people are generous and they leave tips for the people that clean their rooms, and they're very often Muslims. So our life is the oil you have in your car driving around, the gas, the diesel, is coming from Muslim areas. So how many people are providing essentials for our life? Our language has been affected very much by Arabic, especially the Spanish language, and many words from there have come into English. The word check, when you write a check, that's an Arabic word. The word for in Spanish for shirt is camisa, and in Arabic it's camis. And the word for in French and in Spanish it's for trousers is pantaloon. And we even have pants, right? It comes from there. Pantaloon, pantalon in Arabic. So we're more related than we think, and we often have attitudes and ideas that obviously can be understood that they came to be because of hostilities and conflicts and major issues that haven't been resolved in a healthy way. And then I think I'm going to go back to the water here. Then we have prejudicial thinking, and we can't relate to people as they are. And we have many employees here in Magla who are Muslim, and some in Notre Dame who are employees. I think one of the longest standing employees in Notre Dame, Walid, is Muslim, and so many others, and you develop friendships with them because they're good people, they work hard, and you rely on them, and in a way you're entrusting yourself to them, as we do with everybody with whom we work. And so that's a great experience, because it helps us to realize that these aren't foreign bodies. They're actually companions. They're stakeholders in the success of serving the pilgrims and the tourists and the visitors. They're key players. So then this kind of experience help us to overcome prejudices we can inherit that are passed on like legacy from generation to generation. And our world needs greater sense of fraternity. We're all made in the image and likeness of the Almighty. That's our basic faith. That's one of the cornerstones of our faith. And so let's start with that. And because of this, there's great fraternity. And the Muslims venerate Abraham. and even Jesus. I know many people here will have some objections about other positions, but let's talk about that another time. Let's focus now on what we have in common, and that's first of all our created world, our humanity, and we live together. And if there's well over 1 billion Muslims in the world, and well over 2 billion Christians, we're not going to go away tomorrow, either of us. And so in that regard, then we need to see, well, how are we going to live together? And if I'm following Jesus, then I wonder how Jesus would treat a Muslim, how he treated the Samaritan, how he employed in the parable the person of the Good Samaritan as the best example of charity, of kindness. And sometimes many of us who follow Jesus, either baptized or ordained, we give poor example or we give scandal. So let's be humble. Humility never loses. Might seem to lose in some places, but humility is the winner. Humble attitude toward each other, that's the winner. A helpful attitude, a servant attitude, a kind attitude. It might look like it loses in this world, but it doesn't, it wins. It will win forever. Hey, our little bird is over there still. Look at that. Where are you, little birdie? Do some dances for us, little birdie, so we can enjoy your presence here. Where are you? I went too high. There we have you. Isn't that wonderful? You're in Malaysia, or you're in Alaska, or you're in Hawaii, or you're in South America, or in Singapore, and you can see the reflection of this bird here in the water at the periphery of the Sea of Galilee. Here this morning, you can see this bird moving its neck, paying attention to us strangers in her region. So let's look here at the wonderful words we have today from Scripture. It's interesting, isn't it? The very first line after we spoke now in the last few minutes, Acts 13. When Paul came to Antioch in Pisidia, he said in the synagogue, "My brothers, children of the family of Abraham, and those others among you who are God-fearing," so maybe not Jewish, God-fearing, people who reverence God, who bow before God, who prostrate before God, who are God-fearing. God-fearing in the beautiful meaning of that, not in dread of God, but filled with respect and honor and not wanting to offend him, fearing to offend him, wanting to love him, wanting to respond to such great trust that he is giving us a new day, our life, our planet, our world, our cosmos. My brothers. And there are two types of brothers, children of the family of Abraham, and those others among you who are God-fearing. To us this word of salvation has been sent. Then he goes on to describe how Jesus died and how he rose from the dead, and how these are now his witnesses before the people, proclaiming good news. And it's interesting, again, we have this recurrent phenomenon. Paul is quoting the second Psalm. You are my son, this day I have begotten you. You are my son, this day I have begotten you. And so this people was prepared for, since Abraham, in that whole history and culture and religious culture of the Psalms, of their stories, and they were understanding Jesus in that light. You are my son, this day I have begotten you. And that's our psalm today. And then in the gospel passage, there's so many beautiful riches, absolutely amazing. We'll talk more about that at Mass this afternoon. But do not let your hearts be troubled. Have faith in God. Have faith also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. I'm going to prepare a place for you, and I'll come back and take you to myself. What a promise. Are we living for that promise? And what does death mean for us? We talked about this the other day. I'm not sure if it was at Mass or in the sunrise stroll and chat. But what does death mean? Death, where's your sting? Death is a door. God in his good time will call us. Come. Come to me. Leave the place you're in, and I will take you to the real promised land. And that other beautiful line, there's so many beautiful lines here. I am the way, the truth, and the life. People, I'm so happy that you joined again this morning. And in a way you make my day. In this way, well, God made my day. But you also, you're part of the day here. And we thank you for being here. God bless you. Let's see if that little birdie is still there. There she is, queen of her castle. Hello there. See you later, alligators.